Today, we are talking about staying organized as stepmoms, and it looks different than you think. Welcome, welcome. Today's episode is something that fascinates me because it's something that I never feel like I'm quite on top of. And that is staying organized and like having a clutter free life. I just feel like I'm always a mess. And I don't know if you feel like that too, but if you do, you're going to love today's conversation. So today we brought on Lisa Woodruff. She's the CEO of Organize 365. Lisa and 87% of Americans believe organization is a learnable skill, but less than 18% of those same Americans feel they are organized. And I am in that 18%. Lisa is the host of the top rated Organized 365 podcast with 24 million downloads and counting. And she is going to share some strategies for reducing the overwhelm, clearing the mental clutter, and living a productive and organized life. And wouldn't that be wonderful? Lisa also has a book coming out in a couple of weeks with some really amazing tools for you. And so we're going to tell you about how to get that. And we'll have links in the show notes for you. So let's dive in. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me.
Cameron, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So, you know that usually I ask my guests what their stepmom origin story is, and that's what we kick off with. You are not a stepmom, but I want to know your origin story and how you got here and how you're doing all of these amazing things with organization. And we're going to talk about all the things, but tell me how you got here.
I think this is such a great question to start with because a lot of us usually have an idea about how we think we're going to become mothers or if we're going to become mothers. Sometimes it's a surprise when we become a mother or we really desperately want to be a mother and we never get to birth our own children. And that's kind of my story. My entire life, all I wanted to do was get married and have kids and be a stay-at-home mom. And after trying for a few years, we were not successful. I never was able to get pregnant, but we did adopt our children. So I have two children that are adopted and I'm now a grandmother of two children. My daughter is a single mom, which is another kind of family too. 40% of children are born to single mothers every year. So that's a huge population. So I love that we're talking about step parenting, but also the more I do studies about household and organization and systems, the more I realize there is no one family. Like back in the 80s, it was about 40% were the nuclear family. Now it's only 17.9%. So it's getting smaller and smaller. So I love having these diverse conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you mentioned that. And I love your story. I also always dreamed of growing up and getting married and having kids, and it wasn't in the cards for me either. And I ended up with 4 stepkids, and I would not trade how my life has turned out. But that's a whole nother podcast subject. But yeah, thank you for sharing that because I know that can be a hard topic. So, okay, you have got this book, Escaping Quicksand, which I just feel like is so fascinating. So tell me a little bit about how you came to do this. Tell us a little bit about the book, all the things.
Yeah. So listen, always wanted to be married, always wanted to have kids. So my first career was babysitting, which I definitely elevated to an art form. Like I had a good, solid business going in high school and college.
I love it.
Graduated from college. I was a preschool and kindergarten teacher. And then we did adopt those children. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a decade, made money on the side, cleaning houses. And I was in a bazillion direct sales companies. That's a whole nother story. And then we get towards the end of my 30s. And towards the end of my 30s, my kids were getting older. And the expenses, I mean, man, kids are so expensive. And I was like, I like being a stay-at-home mom and I like learning all this money on the side, but we need a little bit more consistent money. So I went back to teaching and it just didn't work with our family. Like I needed to be home more. Work hours and school hours don't match. So if you're the teacher, you're obviously there longer than school. So that wasn't working. Also, I was at a private school, so I made $500 a week. Like it's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money.
No.
Not how much we needed. And then other things had happened, like my parents had gotten divorced, my dad had gotten sick and ultimately passed away. So my sister and I had to sell our family home and be the executor of his estate. 2008, 2009 recession, all those things happened. So I'm getting ready to turn 40. I quit my teaching job. Come home, my house looks like a bomb went off in it. I did not recognize anything in my house. I'd always been an organized person, but it was like I was living in somebody else's home, somebody else's life. And I was like, I can't live this reactive, depressed, overwhelmed for another 40, 50, 60 years. Like the women in my family live into their 90s and I was about to turn 40. I was like, I used to be happy and productive and in control. And I was like, none of those things. And so I did quit my teaching job and I started the company Organized 365. No idea how I would make money with it, but I knew I had to just start like building my own company, not other people's direct sales companies or working for other people.
Well,
I needed the freedom of time and, as my husband would say, just enough rope to hang myself. But also, if you could be successful selling other people's stuff in direct sales, you could be successful selling your own stuff. I just didn't know what I'd end up selling.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's a real freedom. I mean, I left a career of many years to do this and to run my own business. And, there is a lot more stress when you're running your own business, right? Because kind of
Hmm.
the buck does stop with you. But there's also a lot of freedom because the buck
Yeah.
stops with you and you can be creative and you can take chances and take risks. And some people are more risk tolerant than others, but
Right.
I don't know, it's just kind of an amazing opportunity. So in your book, you talk about the overwhelm that comes from managing more and more. And for stepmoms, this can look a little bit different. I mean, they oftentimes are expected to run a household, keep things organized, manage schedules, maybe do the dinners and school pickups and all that kind of stuff. But then they don't necessarily have a full say in, decision making or obviously no say in what happens in the other home. I mean, that's really overwhelming. Like, what would you say?
So I'll give a little bit. I didn't, I guess, finish my story of what you asked, and then I'm going to answer this. So then when I started Organize 365 as a blog, like for SEO purposes, within 3 months, I found out because people told me I was a professional organizer. So I started organizing homes in Cincinnati, and I did that for 6 years and started a podcast and have what I have today. So I've been in a lot of homes. I've been in a lot of blended families, and I now just finished my applied psychology degree. So I have a PhD in applied psychology. So I've been studying all of
Congratulations.
this. Thank you. So I was thinking about these questions that you were going to ask. What I love to do is take my understanding as a teacher and as a household manager, and then how do I create kind of a curriculum for you in your household to be organized and as efficient and productive as you want to be, knowing that there are so many different kinds of households. So I started thinking about this blended family being the role of, yes, you're in charge of all the invisible work, but these are your stepchildren. They aren't your biological children. And I thought about that and I thought, really, it seems to me like it's kind of you have the work, but you don't have the control.
Right. That is the crux of it,
Yeah.
100%. Like every single to a stepmom, every single one of them feels like so much of their life is out of their control.
Yeah. And if you don't do the work, then it falls on you and you're a bad stepmom. And yeah, I get the idea.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
the way I relate this is my daughter and my grandchildren live with me. They're not my children, they're my grandchildren. However, I have a lot of the responsibility, all the income producing and, but they're not my children. So push come to shove, my daughter makes the decisions as she should. She is the mother. However, I have a really, really active role with the grandchildren as I want to. And so I find myself doing as much support as I can. And then she gets to make the decision, which is really
Mhm.
hard. And so part of how I've come to peace with this is I do as much as I can and want to do. And sometimes she would like me to be more participatory. And I don't want to. And they're not my children. So then you could say, that's great. I'm not available for this. So you can have boundaries as well. And you could say, like, I'm not available for this. And the other thing that I do with her each week, like I have this system called the Sunday basket where you go through and you plan your week. And she is a mother with children. So then on Sunday afternoons, I'm like, okay, here's my schedule for the week. Here's when I'm available to help you with the boys. Look at your schedule. Is there any other time you need from me? Any other financial things you need from me? Kind of giving her that planning. I think you can have that also as a stepmom, like, hey, I'm looking at my calendar. Just want to let you know I'm not available on these days. And then also to your spouse, like, look at your calendar. Are there any other things you need me to do for the children? Kind of put them as the mediator. And then the other thing I do is I think often when I have something I want to do with my grandkids and my daughter maybe is going to do something different. I know that God has put these children in our lives. Like when you're an adoptive mom, you realize you're not in control. I mean, none of us are. Our children are not like our control or our possessions. But I
Yeah.
think when you're an adoptive mom, you really realize you had nothing to do with it. Like it's not your genetics at all. Like it's totally a gift from God. And so when you're in this step family situation, same. These children are just a gift. Like they are here. You are here for a reason for these children. You have been put in this family for a reason. And so know that, but also hold it loosely, as in, like God is in control. And even if it's not the way you think it should be done, or it's not what you think is best, or you had to do all the work like the little red hen, you got the food, you baked the bread, you brought the bread, and then everybody else ate the bread. Nobody even said thank you. I mean, God saw it. And so live your life the way you want to live your life for yourself, not for anybody else. It's not fair. Like the amount of work that you do is not fair, but also, I mean, it's good for the kids.
Yeah, it is. And I like that approach because, it is, you can set boundaries for yourself as a step.
Mhm.
And like, I actually love your suggestion for kind of sitting down and having the conversation about like what's coming up and then putting more, making sure that you're having the conversation with your partner so that you're setting your own boundaries and they are responsible for doing stuff. And that's one of the best things that my husband and I did very early on.
Mm.
He's a schedule guy. Like, he loves to keep a calendar. And and I love that about him because I am a schedule girl, and I love having a calendar and knowing what's coming and all that kinda stuff. And so we sit down pretty much every Sunday night, and
Mhm.
we're like, "What's coming up this week?"
Mhm.
And I think it used to make the kids crazy because we would do that, like, at dinner on Sunday or, the first night that they would be there, after transition, and we'd be like, "Alright, here's what's happening this week," and kind of set everybody's expectations, and I think that that's a real gift that you can give each other.
Mhm.
Set Sit down and plan that stuff out. Even if things change, you kind of at least get an initial sense of what's coming down the pike, right?
Yeah, and I think also what you're doing is you're making visible the invisible. So time is so hard to quantify. The work that anybody does in a household is really hard to quantify. I would say the Sunday basket that I have makes visible a lot of the work behind what happens in a calendar. So the Sunday basket and I didn't mean to talk about this so much, but this is really a good
No, no, I was just gonna ask
neutral.
about the Sunday basket.
Okay. It's a good neutral, like blame it on the Sunday basket. So the Sunday basket is where I keep all the projects and my planning and everything that I have active. And I used to keep everything for my grandkids in my Sunday basket, but now I have a second Sunday basket and I keep that on the kitchen counter where my daughter has access to it. And so every time I sign like the one grandchild is in swim classes and he has speech and then he also has preschool. And so everything related to that is in a different slash pocket on the kitchen counter. So whenever she has questions about swim practice, she can go over to the Sunday basket and she can retrieve the information. And what I love about that is then I'm not Google. So it's not mom, where's this? Mom, where is this? So in that way, it makes you one step removed from the activity and the kids and the spouse can go find the information without you. And it also makes visible the invisible load you're carrying. So if you have them signed up for all these different things, the calendar appointment tells you when you need to be and where, but it doesn't always hold all the additional information you have in your head about
Right.
that. And so if you can have all that on the counter and like maybe the kids make a request, I'm just pretending. Let's say they make a request and the kids are in a really bad mood that day and they're like, well, my mom would let me, or you didn't let me do that last time or something like that. Let's just say they're like teenagers or something. Then you can look to the Sunday basket and if each kid has a color or whatever, and you can see all the slash pockets related to that child. And you can say, yes, I understand that you want to do basketball camp, but we're already paying for braces and your speech therapy and your trip to wherever and your whatever. And like you're going to see right there everything that they're doing. Because in the moment, when you're in the moment with kids or with your spouse and a request comes through and you're thinking, oh, I really want to be the good stepmom. I really want to grant this wish, but we don't have the financial resources. And I'm just telling you, I know, as I know how households go, money's going to be tight this summer for everybody. I'm telling you, money's going to be tight this summer because energy prices are going to go up, which, yes, is costing more to fill your gas tank, but
Yep.
that also means it's going to be more to cool your house. And every single service you have is going to put a gas surcharge on it. So everything's going to go up. And then food is going to go up. So whatever your summer budget was, honestly, I'm just going to say cut it by 20%. I think everything's going to be 20% higher this summer.
Yeah.
And
I
so
don't think
as
you're
you're
wrong.
thinking about that, you need to be really prudent and thinking about how you can have the biggest bang for your buck and not feel guilty that we're in this weird economy that we're in right now. I don't know. That's just something that's been on my mind a lot that I'm sharing with my community. This idea that the money is not going to work really this summer, but we could still have fun. We just have to be really planned about it. And the more
Uh-huh.
you can make visual what you're already spending money on, what you've already committed to, then you can just stand in confidence with. The other thing I like about the Sunday basket, or like on your calendar, if you're color coding by kid, sometimes you'll feel like the colors will kind of show you if your money and your time is going to one kid versus another one and help you kind of even out where that attention and focus is going. And I think that is probably more important than other things that you're not losing a kid in the shuffle.
Yeah, I hear that a lot actually from our step families where both spouses bring kids in. I think that that
Mm,
balance can be tricky,
yeah.
making sure that all the kids feel and you're going to parent different children differently. And there may be
Yep.
times during their childhood that one gets more or appears to be getting more than the others just because that's, what the need is. But I like the
Mhm.
idea of being able to see that. And even, you're talking about like communicating to a kid, hey, we've already done X, Y, and Z, so we're not going to do this.
Right.
I love being able to visualize that for the kids. Now, for our community, of course, that message would come from the spouse, not from the stepmom, because we focus real hard on connection before correction. That
Right.
being said, it is a lovely way to illustrate. And if, that's communicated from the parent and the kid comes back later, then the stepmom can say, hey, I know your dad showed you this. Like, do you want to look at it
Mhm.
again? No, or, something that kind of supports it, but it is there in a really tangible way. That's really interesting.
Yeah, the more you can make things visual, the more it's visual to everyone, not just to you in your own head. So, like, I keep on my calendar, I know how much time I spend with my grandchildren, with my spouse, with my son, so that when I do I like to take trips. So when I take trips for my business and I hear this, you haven't spent enough time with me lately, I'm like, actually, and I like have it on my calendar. And you
Yeah,
may say,
you
like,
have the data.
okay, that's a little over the top. But us women, like, we get in our heads and you have a kid say, like, you didn't do this for me. And then we feel like that's forever. I use my calendar to kind of substantiate where I have been spending my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
No, I
makes me
think that,
realize I am really purposeful about it.
yeah. No, I think that that's great. And I mean, yeah, I can see where kids are like, oh my God, mom, please. But I also think, kids, they're developmentally, it's
Hmm.
appropriate, but they're selfish little guys, right? Like they see the world through this lens of how everything impacts them, which is age appropriate. But I think sometimes being able to show them, actually, I spent more time
Hmm.
with you than I spent with Johnny or whatever that looks like, I think can kind of help with I don't know, help them kind of work through some of that stuff in their head.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, I hear a lot from stepmoms who feel like they are drowning and they're overwhelmed by the household stuff, kids that are coming over and making a mess and have different roles at mom's house, different roles, at their house. Tell me about escaping quicksand and how that can support a stepmom who does feel like she's drowning.
Yeah. So pretty much all women, by the time we get into our late 30s and early 40s, feel like we are invisible or
Yeah.
just the non-paid maid. And what I think has happened, or I'll just speak from my own experience, what happened to me was when you have children, they need your care and you sacrifice for them. And I wanted to, obviously. It's what all I ever wanted to do. But along the way, they become independent and their needs become greater financially, but they're not around you as much with time. As I was approaching my 40s, was like, okay, so I sacrificed for these children all of my time, talent, attention, finances. At what point is it okay for me to buy an $18 book and not feel guilty about it? At what point do I get to get back on the list? And that's kind of what the story of Escaping Quicksand is. I'm 54 now. So I was looking back in my 40s. How did I go from overweight, depressed, reactive, like I had no self care, to someone in her 50s who decided to get a PhD just because I wanted to? Like, how do
Yeah.
you how do you get there? And what are the mental mindset shifts that happen along the way? And when I was in that PhD, I was in a developmental psychology class and we were talking about some things. I got this image in my head of the St. Louis Arch. And at the bottom of one side was childcare and the bottom of the other side was elder care. We know what that is. Like, to take care of a child, you need to provide for their well-being, you need to provide for their clothes and their food and their education and their home. But it's beyond that. Like, we also provide for their emotional and relational and spiritual development and spend time with them. And I was thinking about this and I realized that our definition of self-care, maybe everybody could think about what their definition of self-care is. For me, it was like getting my nails done or getting a massage once in a while. I take a bubble bath every night. So, the bubble bath, but that's not really self-care. That's
Yeah.
pampering. And I was like, when I was in my PhD, I realized we don't have good definitions of these words that we live every day. Self care is not well
So
defined.
true.
So I defined it. So self care is the support of an adult's educational, spiritual, emotional, and relational needs, in addition to the life sustaining care, including feeding, bathing, clothing, and medical care. That's the whole St. Louis Arch. From
Yep.
18 to 88, you are responsible for taking care of you. And we don't do that. We take care of everyone else. So stepmom doesn't matter what kind of mom you are. We should be taking care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of times in the household, I get frustrated when I'm doing for others and they don't recognize I'm doing for them and profusely thank me and bow down. I guess you should. So what I realized was instead of focusing all of my attention on them when they don't even necessarily really need it or want it, it's time to kind of put myself on the list. So what does that look like? How do we do that? We don't know. We don't know how to do that. So what I would say in your household is your bedroom, bathroom, and closet are mostly in your domain. The kids aren't in those spaces, your spouse is obviously, but most of that is still in your domain. So
Uh-huh.
take some time and clean out your closet and your bathroom and your bedroom and really reset that. I call that our condo. The kids' rooms are their apartments. So that's our condo. Get that set exactly how you want it for your self-care. Go to bed and wake up in an organized space that's totally supporting you. Because yes, you don't have control over your spouse or other children or any other human. As you go into the communal areas of the household, they're probably going to get trashed or reorganized or whatever when the kids are there. Get frustrated again. Go into your laundry room, go into your storage room, go into the garage, go into these spaces where the kids and the spouse usually aren't. Get it all organized there and start to get all these pockets of your house organized the way you want them organized where they don't get messed up and frustrated. And so when I would get frustrated, when our house would become disheveled, I would go organize my paper, organize the storage room. I would go in the laundry room and turn on the laundry so I couldn't hear what was going on while I just putzed around in my laundry room. Like there are spaces in your house where you have pretty much 100% control. Focus
Yeah.
on those spaces when you are frustrated.
I love that. I think that goes back to the control thing again, right? Like
Yeah, I
we're
know.
worried about like all of these things that we can't control. And really if we just kind of turn in and figure out like what we can control and do something
Yeah.
about that. And that's so in line with all of the things that we talk about in our stepmom community all the time.
Yeah.
This has been so great. Tell me where people can find you. And your book is in pre-sale right now, correct?
Yes, Escaping Quicksand's in presale. It comes out June 23rd, but if you buy it now, we are doing a book study and I'm dropping one chapter of the audio every week. So you'll have the whole book in our app,
Oh,
the
amazing.
audio, and we're all having these discussions about, okay, we're just about to get to the part where we're organizing our bathroom, bedroom, and closet. That's one of the chapters, and people are sharing before and after pictures and figuring out what our self-care routines are. It's been really fun to do this book as an experiential learning before it launches.
I love that. So, where can people get in on that? And then I'll make sure that the link is dropped in the show notes.
Yeah, if you go to escapingquicksand.com, it'll give you all of the information there.
And that's so easy to remember, people. Escapingquicksand.com. Lisa, thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you.